Alright, welcome to a daily update. So I streamed earlier today and covered off, the majority of my thoughts, but really was just a large Q&A session based on the price action that we've had. I want to cover off things in a little bit more detail now for kind of group discussion. First of all, you can see I'm on the NAS. So for anybody that doesn't know, I used to be, still am, but used to be an equities trader. I'm primarily an equities trader over crypto. So this is an area that you will see in daily updates that I will cover off. And it is something that I will probably have a separate channel for to discuss thought processes for. I flick back and forth between the two. There's been zero reason to trade equities while crypto's been as strong as it has been lately. So that's one of the reasons that you've seen a lot of crypto posts from me, is because I've really not bothered looking at equities. But from a scalping perspective, I really enjoy equities, especially the indexes. And the NAS is in a setup at the moment that I think is worth discussing from a crypto implication perspective as well. So when we look at the current setup for the Nasdaq, we're in a position now where we've got a monthly divergence forming up here at the highs between August and May, which is where we are now. So we've got a really strong divergence forming between these highs, and the last time we had this on the Nasdaq, we ended up correcting 20%, 23%, and that was in 2018. So we've got a similar setup that we're faced with at the moment, and you can see this on the triple Q here, which is just the index for the ETF for the Nasdaq. So you can see that here, okay, with the correction that we had back in 2018 here, and I traded this as well. Back into the area that we've got here. Right, so a lot of similarities between the two divergences, the length of time caused between the two divergences, and the area that we would look at potentially tapping into. The reason this is important to us is that we may have implications to BTC as a result of this. Right? There may be knock-on effects if we see a larger correction for indexes. What does that mean for crypto? We know typically they're connected. And we know that whenever we see larger corrections in traditional markets, we see the correction also representing crypto. Now, I've been aware of the Nasdaq picture for a while, and I would have liked to have seen the Nasdaq correct at a time where BTC corrected. That would have been the best outcome. Right? BTC to correct, with greater strength than the Nasdaq, but still to have that correction at roughly a similar time. And unfortunately, we've seen BTC correct first, which I don't think is a particularly attractive area to be in for BTC, because like I said, we tend to follow the Nasdaq. So if we still get that correction, we're still going to get it, on BTC even more to the downside potentially. So it is definitely worthwhile keeping this in mind. The other thing is with the NAS and with the indexes, we've got greater economic factors that are driving any potential corrections, and certainly the fear in the market at the moment from an index perspective. So we've got the fear of inflation that is underpinning this market. And we saw the markets correct very heavily when we started to have some of the discussions around inflation rates rising, okay, and Fed tapering. So a lot of factors that are going to play into potential corrections on the Nasdaq. And what we're actually going to see is, potentially one of the cases that we've always thought of for BTC, which is, do we have something that is an inflation hedge? We haven't really been in a situation where we've, looked for a large inflation hedge. We see that metals are performing well, which is one area of inflation hedge. And we know that BTC is potentially tried to serve that purpose given the birth of BTC in the area that it came from. And so it will be interesting to watch what happens, especially if the correction for traditional markets is going to be from the narrative perspective of inflation. We'll see what happens. But the Nasdaq at the moment, this is kind of an active position that I'm basically taking on this here. So we're just looking at a retest back into a daily region of significance for me here, around the 13,500 region, and I'm looking at basically taking a short down for the 20% correction. Now the way I'm doing this is by buying puts, So I've bought some triple Q puts, and that's one of the ways I'm looking to have some short exposure to the NASDAQ up in this region. But I thought I would just cover that off. Number one, to give you a little bit more of a flavour about my background and kind of where some of the content that I'll be producing will be focused on. So anybody that does still trade traditional markets, anybody that is interested in trading equities, then quite happy to bring that up and discuss in more detail. And it's something that I will probably gravitate back towards. I really enjoy trading equities for a whole host of reasons, primarily because they have a fixed trading time, which means that you actually get time away from the PC and looking at charts because the markets are closed. So you can't do anything because the markets are closed. So it's a really nice thing for a lot of people to trade equities because there's no pressure to be constantly looking at the charts or feeling as though you've kind of got that addictive quality in searching out things all the time, setups, being in positions, spot buys, etc. And I've been waiting for a larger correction in the market in order to, get back in. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on equities over the coming weeks and months. The NASDAQ correction, when we're talking about a monthly correction, I think it's important to expand on this as well. We're talking about a monthly correction. We're talking about something that could be 2, 3, 4 months in the making. So this isn't something that because I've said, I'm short today, I'm buying puts today, that by next week you'd expect that move to have played out. And we're talking months. The same with the weekly div on BTC. I kept on stressing. Very important. It can take days, weeks, months to transpire. Whenever we're looking at these higher time frames, very important not to kind of, ignore the idea or move away from the idea just because we think, 2 or 3 weeks has passed. It can be a long time in building up to this potential correction. All right, so enough about traditional markets. I've already wasted 6 minutes of time discussing those. All right, so we'll go into some areas of interest at the moment. First one here is BTC. So one thing I'm going to do as well is I'm going to start scalping BTC again. So I'm going to start actively scalping BTC. And the reason that I'm going to be doing that is because I think that the market right now is going to favor me scalping versus trying to have swing positions open right now. I think that swing positions will develop over the coming days and weeks. I don't think swing positions are something to be taken right now. So therefore I want to try and, utilize my scalping again and start scalping BTC. So I'm going to be doing that a lot more, and I'll be providing some content and direction for the way that I look at scalping the markets. And again, just background information for anybody that isn't aware of this. For the first 3 years of me trading full time and the majority of my prior experience, it was all from a scalping perspective. It was lower time frame moves. It was very quick micro intraday moves that I was looking for, and that is primarily my background. I made the transition to swing trading a little over a year ago because I wanted to free up some more time. Scalping is very consuming. I wanted to free up some more time. So, my background is in scalping. So it will be nice to be able to talk about that with you in more detail for any scalpers or lower time frame traders out there. Hope I'll be able to provide some experience and some exposure to my way of thinking, my methodology through scalping. So BTC down at the lows, we can see we're forming a divergence in this region here between these two lows currently. So BTC trying to protect this region. This sell-off today caused by, more discussion of China. But we're in a region here where BTC will try and bounce and try and push the upside. From this region, I'd probably be looking for a rejection, maybe back into 39,300. Maybe we'll get all the way back up to 40,000 here. So just looking for a bounce away from this this consolidation here, this area down the bottom where we're forming the divergence at the moment. And something that I covered off in stream that I'll cover off individually here for anybody that missed it is the zero rush to position in times like this. We take a look at this, and I'm going to do a tweet about this afterwards. So I'll map it out now, so I can just tweet the image afterwards. And obviously I can give you guys the insight into what I'm thinking in areas like this. So what we've got is, after large sell-offs like we've witnessed on BTC, after large sell-offs we have time for consolidation. We always tend to have a consolidation region that takes place after after periods of big sell-offs. Right, so when we look at areas elsewhere that we've had large sell-offs, one here. Okay, let's go back in time and let's get the first ones. So first off, let's take this area here. All right, this is the original March COVID sell-off. What we do is we sell off into this low here, consolidate for a little bit in here over the space of, what's this, 1 2 3 4 5 6 days, consolidate in here, bounce away. And then what's important, very important in here, is the retest and the sell-off back down to this region here. All right, this is very important, so I want to keep this in mind. We come back down towards this region here at 5.6k at the time. All right, and we have another example of that here. So here's the original sell-off. This time we have 2 days of consolidation and a V recovery. And then what we do is we come back down into this region again here. Okay, same here. Large sell-off on BTC. Brings us back down to this region. Consolidate, again, 8 days or so in here of consolidation. Look at all of the action underneath here. This is when Saylor was hoovering up BTC under this 10k level. And then what we do, move away, we come back down to this region again. So now we've got 3 examples here of where we get consolidation in this region. There's 2 examples of consolidation, one of a V. Consolidation in here, bounce away, move back inside to this region, 5.6. Strong sell-off here. Strongest sell-off we'd seen so far on the recovery for BTC. Strong sell-off, V recovery, sell-off back down to the area again. And multiple touches at this area this time. This area here, big sell-off. Consolidation for 8 or so days down here at the lows, bounce away, retest of the area. So what the common theme is here is the retest of the area. Retest, retest, retest. And both scenarios, this one and this one, both contain multiple retests here and multiple retests here. Okay, now what this is designed to show you is even if this is a bottom region, you'll have time to position. That's what this is saying. If this is a bottom, you will have time to position. You don't need to position here. You'll have time to position if we do this. Because the likelihood is we will always come back to an area that we have seen some acceleration from, like we've seen in all of these prior instances through here. We've seen the bounce away and we've seen the pullback, the bounce away and the pullback, the bounce away and the pullback every single time, and that follows every single correction we have. So when I'm saying to you, you do not need to panic and rush into a position. That's the truth, right? That's the reality of it. You don't need to rush into a position because we're only on day 2 of consolidation after a 55% total correction. So there's no rush, there's no panic to get into positions at times like these. Let the consolidation happen. Now, other traders and other, potentially other analysts within this group will have a different thought process to me. Some people may like buying the lows like this. Now, I prefer waiting until we've seen some sort of strength and push away and retest. That's what I'm looking for. And 2 very important things. A lot of people are currently trading aggressively because they're trying to make it back. They lost money over the last week and they're trying to make it back. Trading like that in this environment is a guaranteed way to screw yourself. It isn't going to happen. You're trading aggressively, you're not adhering to risk management thought process, and you're going to get chopped. And the second thing is at times like these, you'll start to see green and you'll start to FOMO. So you'll start to see green appearing on the charts. You'll start to see days where we're 10, 15, 20% up, and you'll start to FOMO that you've missed the bottom. Yesterday was a prime example. Yesterday was a great recovery day for a lot of alts. Today, they're back down to where they started, potentially even below the original lows that they printed after the sell-off on BTC. So you've got to be very, very cautious. don't overtrade this region. If you're a scalper, this is your playground. If you're a lower time frame trader, this is your playground. Because you've got plenty of volatility, you've got plenty of back and forth action, and you know that there's a high likelihood of us entering a consolidation range. So therefore it frees you up to try and scalp this region. If you're a swing trader, you can't do shit here. If you're looking at buying spot, you can't do shit here. You have to just sit and let the market play out. Right? However hard that is. Especially if you've lost money. Step away, don't try and win it all back over the next 3 days. It's not going to happen. You're just going to hurt yourself even more. This is not the playground for you. Okay, a couple I want to cover off. One of them is COPE. Okay, highly talked about, right? And something that I think is potentially looking as though it may be in a good area to represent potential buying. So COPE down here at 415, we're currently seeing a 4-hour bull div develop. Now we have to wait until that's locked in. We've got 52 minutes until this candle closes, but what we would like to see is confirmation of the bullish divergence that we think we're seeing on COPE. And in order to confirm a bullish divergence, what we need to see is movement away. Right? This is not confirmed as it stands because we can easily sell off and therefore invalidate this. So what we're looking to see on COPE is we're looking to see green. So over the next 8, 12, 16 hours, we're looking for COPE to turn, right? Turn back up. Show some strength. And if we get that scenario, then this is a position I'll look at buying some spot in. So I hope that makes sense. This is not a confirmed divergence, because there's nothing that indicates RSI will turn up and bounce away here. We're still red, or black in this instance. We need to see green candles in order to lock this in, and then we can begin thinking about taking a position once we see the RSI moving away. It's why when we're playing into divergences, there's never any rush to position, because very often we have to put ourselves against the trend when we're trading divergences, like I've covered before. And we don't want to stand in the way of something that's aggressively selling off if we don't need to. So for now, we're just sitting and waiting. So COPE is at a really interesting point. And I'm a big fan of COPE as a whole. So this is something that I would like the opportunity to be a buyer lower on. I'd be quite happy if COPE dipped down into the 260s. That really would not be an issue for me at all. Okay, what else do I want to cover off? Well, actually, let's cover off Ray. Very similar, 4-hour div potential. You can see here, here's our low, here's our lower low, here's our low, here's our higher low. Again, nothing confirmed. We're going to put in a green candle here on this 4-hour close if Ray manages to hold above 540, and then we're starting to develop. We're starting to have this potential bull div in here on the 4-hour. So again, potential in here for Ray, but nothing yet. Nothing confirmed yet. Just sitting and waiting. Sol. Rough after yesterday, back down to the lows. Not something I'd want to trade. Too much back and forth action. Nothing I'd want to sit in spot for. Nothing I'd want to open up fresh. Right? If you're already in spot position on Sol, then maybe you're holding through, and that's fine. Can't open fresh in here. Serum. Slightly different to Ray because there's no 4-hour div. What Serum is doing is holding the low, which is also important. So you remember on the video the other day I covered off the 5-minute time frame and us changing market structure on BTC to potentially give us a bounce that we could have played into from a scalp perspective. Now remember, this is happening on the 4-hour and not the 5-minute chart. But what we're seeing down here is a potential holding of the low, okay, to give us a bounce. Now, where else have we seen that? So here's our low, here's our potential higher low. Potential because we haven't bounced from here yet, we're just holding. Where else did we do that? Here. See the way we held this low here on the second sell-off? Didn't form a divergence, we just held the low. Then we had a nice move higher as a result on Serum. And are we going to see something similar here? It's a really nice setup potentially forming on Serum. Different because there's no divergence. Still significant because it's potentially a higher low. It's going to really matter on what BTC does and what the Nasdaq does in the next 50 minutes as it heads towards the close for the weekend. DeFi, struggling. Aave, area of importance on the 4 hour. This area here, 520 down to 510, very, very significant. Higher time frame, this is the key level. And you note the interaction around this level and you can just see how significant it is. Right, rejections above, finally a break higher, retest as support. Now keep in mind this is a higher time frame weekly level, so when I'm looking at it at the 4 hour, you're going to have closes below. Holds as support, all of the time trying to drive higher. And then what happens is big sell off through the level, big sell off through the level, retest as resistance. So we switch this level, nasty rejection here and a push further down, taking out the low that we've seen here on the close. So DeFi gone from looking very strong to potentially moments. If I'm looking to be long on Aave, I can't be long underneath here. I have to be long above, right? So you have to see that strength in order to get long. Or we wait for a div. Concerning thing is we don't have any divergence. We've just got clean price action to the downside. Clean price action to the downside. So we've got to go lower to form any divergence anyway on Aave from here. So not a particularly attractive one at all. Now SNX is awkward because SNX performed really well today. Right, it's green. Like what a fucking miracle. In the sea of red we've actually got something that's green. But again, I closed out spot in this because I don't want to hold spot at a time like this. It's too awkward for me. Take another quick look at BTC here and see how the lower time frame is performing. Still holding that div down here. Take a look at the NAS. Yeah, holding higher for now. But just another sea of red day again. So big things that I want to communicate now. And a summary of what I've covered off here. And I've only covered a few charts, but that's deliberate because there's fuck all interest in trading this. Don't be horny to trade. Don't be horny to position for swing trades at areas that you're probably going to get stopped out when it comes to thinking about trades over the course of the next few weeks. Lower time frame traders, right? It's your turn. You're ready to go. They're giving you the green light here. Market saying, yeah, come and trade me lower time frame because I'm going to chop around and fuck around for a bit. So use your signals on lower time frame and get trading. Spot buyers, you're sitting on your hands. Swing traders, you're sitting on your hands. Some things, Serum, potentially painting a higher low on the 4 hour time frame. Potentially significant for us to think about how we want to try and trade that. Ray, potentially painting a 4 hour bull div. Again, how do we want to trade that? Cope, potentially painting a 4 hour bull div. How do we want to trade that? So some opportunities in there for some relatively nice setups. And some ways that we can look at trying to move in on things. But keeping in mind that the wider picture and the interaction with the Nasdaq and the traditional markets is also not great. And we know that BTC is also choppy, has the tendency to follow the indexes if the indexes fall further. We've got to be prepared for that. And being prepared for that is not sitting with masses of alts hoping that we caught the bottom. We've got lots of time. Think about that retest idea I went through. The way that we always come back and we retest those areas on BTC of major breakouts or moves higher. So whether that be the V reversal, whether that be the consolidation, we always make our way back to those levels. And it's those times on BTC that I went through in this chart here on the daily time frame. It is these times down here that when you try and position into swings at times like this, at times like this, and times like this, You get stopped out when we correct. You get stopped out when we correct. And you get stopped out when we correct. Because you position for a swing in here, and you panic when price comes back in. So let's instead flip the logic this time. Let's instead let the consolidation happen. Let's let the impulse happen. And let's take advantage of the correction back into the area that we were identifying as the chop. Right? If that's how we want to play strength, and if that's how we see strength unravel. Because one of the options for BTC in this region, of course, that we can't exclude, is the fact that this chop here resolves this way. It doesn't have to resolve to the upside. There's every chance. There is a chance that we resolve to the downside. And if this happens, then we're fine, because we didn't put our money at risk. We didn't put our capital at risk in chop. We just let it play out. And if it does this, then we look and we say, okay, well look, I can buy cheaper if I'm still bullish on BTC now. But at least I didn't put my money in this area. I've already lost enough here. Alright. So I'll be back for another video tomorrow. And I hope everybody has a good rest of the day until then. Enjoy your Friday evening, guys, and take care.